Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews. Kind of a smaller week. Fortunately, we don't we caught up last week, so that added a little extra to last week's show. But because of WonderCon, trying to catch up with all that stuff. But we'll get to those in a second. But we have, I wanted to mention that we're gearing up for our annual free comic book day reviews. Now, I have fortunately gotten some of the free comic book days. I will be reading them and going over them for our annual free comic book day. So that way you can kind of figure out what to get, what's new material, what's reprints, what's previews of books that are coming out. So that way it kind of gives you an idea when you go to your local comic shop to get free comic books or get the free comic books that are available. You'll have an idea of kind of what to look for and, maybe what might interest you. The one thing that's very important, and I really always want to reiterate this, that local comic shops, they do pay for the free comic book days. It's a nominal fee, but they do pay for it. So make sure that when you go there to get free comics, to make sure you buy some stuff while you're there to support the local comic shop and kind of help them pay for the free books that you're getting, because they're not free. And my local comic shop, Pulp Fiction Comics, Long Beach, California, they do a food drive at the same time. And I know a lot of stores do similar things, for their local communities. So make sure you support your local comic shop on Free Comic Book Day. So with that being said, let's get to this week's reviews. First up, we have Blow Away #1, written by Zach Thompson with artwork by Nicola Izzo. So this is kind of an interesting story. What it is Bryn Broughton, she's a photographer, and she's at this Baffin Island. She's trying to capture photographs of this endangered species, because they're very rare and everything. So it's basically like an Antarctic type situation. It's very cold and everything. So she has set up cameras to record video to find to catch this wild this endangered species. And so along the way, she discovers certain things like, there's a bear caught in a polar bear caught in a bear trap. She goes and rescues it and stuff like that. And then she notices these two climbers, and they're climbing up the peak. And so she's intrigued by this story. Like, these people kind of came out of nowhere. What are they doing here? And then when they get to the top, it looks like they get into a fight, and one of them pushes the other off. So is it like a murder? We're not quite sure. And then there's kind of a twist on that at the end that I don't want to give away, but it's kind of an interesting story. It's very slow burn story. Thompson, it's really paced really well. It's kind of like you really don't know what's kind of going on. Her premise of, hey, I'm looking for wildlife, but obviously, there's kind of a, basic murder mystery kind of going on in behind the scenes. Izzo's artwork's actually really nice, captures it. There's a lot of, white panels because of the snow, but overall it's a good looking book. And, it's in a lot of ways, it's kind of talking heads. There's not a lot of huge action in the story. I think it's one of those where it's really going to be dependent, like, on the second issue. I mean, Thompson set everything up here, and it's intriguing. It's just kind of a slow burn murder mystery. So it's definitely on the little bit on the slower side, but I don't think that's a huge problem. I think it's just going to be, okay, where is this story going to go? I think it's off to a decent start. Like I said, Izzo's artwork is really nice. Does a really nice job of capturing, the feeling and everything, and kind of the tension with the story. I think I think it's kind of worth checking out. Like I said, it's not a huge, I didn't like, oh my God, it was amazing, but I think it was a good start to an interesting story that's not just, kind of something you've kind of read before. So I did like that. Next up, we have Nightwing #113, which is actually also number 300. It's written by Tom Taylor and Marv Wolfman, with artwork by Daniel D. Niculo and Bruno Redondo. There's also a backup story, 0001, written by Michael W. Conrad, with artwork by Howard Porter. So this being the 300th issue, it's not a double-sized issue, it's just a normal-size issue. And So the basic story is it's Dick's birthday, and he's getting an award, and so everybody's telling him, hey, you got to get to the the party, and one of the funny things is he lets Barbara sleep in, and she gets mad, and he pretends he kind of is Oracle. It's she's like pissed at him, and she's like, well, it's your birthday, so I have to not be pissed at you. So it's really funny. I love their relationship and what Taylor's doing with that. And then basically they get to the awards, and I don't want to spoil it, but there's a surprise twist in the awards. Also under the underlying story of, it looks like the Heartless is back. So we're kind of seeing what's going on with that. That'll be interesting going forward, because the next story arc is going to be Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo's last story arc, sadly. But this was really nice. The really other nice thing is there's after the awards, they go to Marv and George's pizza place, a la Marv Wolfman and George Perez, and it's co-written by Marv Wolfman on that part, and Bruno Redondo does those 2 pages, where Danielle DiNiculo does most of the artwork. But it's a nice tribute to Marv and George, who created Nightwing as a character. Dick Grayson was already established in Mythos, but they created Nightwing. And it's also, it's kind of bittersweet because George is no longer with us. But it was nice that Marv came in to kind of write, co-write that the sequence on the book. Once again, the art by Niculo and Redondo for a couple of pages is really nice. It's a really nice, it's a nice celebration of Nightwing in 300, but it also has kind of continuing story. So that was plus. The backup by Conrad and Porter is actually really nice. It's a basically kind of a silent story where there's this runaway subway, and Dick has to defuse a bomb that's on it, and it's all told in silent story. And it's actually really good. I mean, once again, I love short stories, and when they're done well, they're really good. And Conrad really nailed it on the story here. And then Porter does a really good job of bringing that silent script to life with the artwork and everything. And there's the countdown and everything. It's really a good short story. It's a nice one and done story that was really nice. And once again, nice that it complemented the main story. It's like, oh, this is good. It didn't feel like it didn't fit into the Nightwing story. So I'm a big fan of Nightwing. This was really a nice issue, and I'll be interesting to see where they take their final story arc from here. Next up, we have Beware the Planet of the Apes, #1, written by Mark Guggenheim, with artwork by Alvaro Lopez. And then there's excerpts from Adventures of the Planet of the Apes, written by Doug Munch, with artwork by Alfredo Arcola and George Tusca. So this is the final story of this. This is basically a prequel to the 1968 Planet of the Apes film. And Guggenheim's definitely done his homework. So what it is that Cornelius and Zora go to the Forbidden Zone to find Lucius, who's been captured by the gorillas. And along the way, they discover these mutants. And it is in New York. And because they're staying in the stadium, the humans are, and there's been kind of this agreement between the human and the apes, but the apes are planning not only to attack the humans, but to also attack the apes. And Cornelius and Zara discover this, plan with the humans. And so there's basically the last issue, they, went to attack the apes, the gorillas. And, this kind of wraps everything up. There's also Nova, who we know from the original film. She's gone along with Cornelius and Zora to the Forbidden Zone. And so what it is that, they basically thwart the gorillas, but also there's a twist in the story, how it leads directly into the beginning of the 1968 film. I really enjoyed this. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the original film. I think it's by far one of the best Planet of the Apes films of even of the newer ones. I just think it's really it's a great story and everything. Guggenheim's done a great how he's kind of built a new story with all this stuff, and it really just leads right into it. It was really good, and Lopez's art is really nice. And then there's the the kind of the flashbacks to the old Marvel series. That's always been a nice touch throughout this series. I really liked it. It stuck the landing quite well. And if you're a fan of the original Apes film, then definitely this is well worth checking out. So if you missed any of these issues, definitely pick up the trade when it comes out. But ultimately, I did really enjoy it, and I think Guggenheim and Lopez, stuck the landing, which is really what you want to do when you finish your story. Next up, we have Wonder Woman #8, written by Tom King with artwork by Daniel Sampere. And then there's The World's Finest Backup, Part 5, written by Tom King with artwork by Belen Ortega. Sovereign has captured Wonder Woman, and he's tied her up with the lasso of truth. So what it is he's basically mentally trying to break her. And while this is happening, she's having these kind of a dream, or of her and Steve being married, kind of like in the 50s in the suburbia, where she's the doting wife, and Steve's like the kind of typical male from the 50s, like, you're the wife, you need to clean, cook, blah blah blah. And so, but it's also like she's trying to fight the lasso of truth with Sovereign, because he's basically trying to break her. And so that's all going on, and it's really an interesting story, how the juxtaposition of male dominance and female empowerment. There's also kind of a religious aspect to it, which is really kind of interesting. And it really is, more of a, slower paced type story, but I liked it how, it just, this is one of those stories you definitely want to take your time and let it kind of all seep in. And of course, as always, Sampre's art is just really gorgeous. I mean, he is just an amazing artist on this book. And I really like what King is doing with this book, and not just, having another superhero book where, she just beats, villains up all the time. It's really getting into, the mythology of Wonder Woman, which is really good. And then the World's Finest Backups that he's doing with Ortega have been really fun. So what this one is John and Damian are, keeping an eye on Trinity, and they're at the Fortress of Solitude. And John comes back from a mission, and she's taken the time sphere and gone into the past to kind of do a book report on samurais. And of course, when you travel through time, you have to be careful and not mess things up. Well, yeah, things get messed up. And what's really funny is that how you see the present day changing while while John's yelling at Damien for letting her go. It's a really fun. I really love these backups with the three of them. It's really kind of a nice break from the the main kind of heavy story, to have this nice light fun story, and they've been really good. And I really love Ortega's artwork. She is just doing a really knockout job on these, and just really capturing the fun of it. And once again, I'm really digging this book. I know there's going to be a trade coming out soon of, I believe, the first 6 issues, so that can get you caught up. And then last issue was a standalone issue. It was a kind of a somewhat fill-in issue. And now 8, kind of continues the story from issue 6. So definitely continue to check that out. I'm really loving this book. Next up, we have Cobra Commander #4, written by Joshua Williamson, with artwork by Andrea Milana. We're kind of, the book started off really weird. I'll tell you this, it was really bizarre in the beginning. But it's really kind of come into its own. And I really have to give Williamson, from like the first issue was like, what the freak is going on, to, oh, this kind of, so really, Cobra Commander's in Florida. He's discovered that there's Energon there. But there's kind of like these swamp people that are, guarding it basically. And so, so while his bodyguard Nemesis is taking care of the, like the swamp people and the hillbillies, Cobra Commander goes and finds the lab where the Energon is, and there's a scientist down there who's, they've captured, and they're making him work with the Energon. And so Cobra Commander's like figures out, hey, we need to get this back to Cobra Law. And so, after, the hillbillies are basically decimated by Nemesis, Cobra Commander comes out, and then he finds out that Nemesis was not necessarily his bodyguard. He was sent there to get the Energon. So then there's a battle between Cobra Commander and Nemesis, and then we find out where from one of the swamp people where the Energon was going. I'm not going to spoil that, but it really all makes sense when it comes together. And it's like I said, it started off really, that first issue is freaking bizarre. But each issue, Williamson has built a story, and, like, oh, okay, I kind of get where he was going with that first issue, even though it didn't kind of make much sense in the beginning. Milana's artwork's actually really nice, continues to do a good job. There's a lot of action in this issue, so really gets to let loose with, like, the insanity of a, big fight. But I'm really digging what this is, and I like that Williamson and Milana are doing something very different than just like, oh, here's Cobra Commander, he's a bad guy, he hates G.I. Joe, and we're gonna go blah blah. It's not that, and that's what I really appreciate about what's kind of going on in these Energon universe books. It's Skybound, that they're really trying to do something different, and it's really working out really well. Next up, we have Superman 13, written by Joshua Williamson and Rafa Sandoval. What it is, this is the second part of House of Brainiac. And so Brainiac has captured most of the Superman family. And so what happens is, that Superman goes and finds Lobo because he's trapped on Earth because of the Green Lantern quarantine of planet Earth. So they basically, he tells, first of all, he's pissed at Lobo because, like, his race was the ones that attacked, and, like, they're robots, but, it's like they've obviously, Brainiac's maybe gotten some DNA or something. So that's why he goes and gets Lobo. And so basically Lobo and Superman are going after Brainiac now. And we're also starting to find out that there's kind of something going on with Brainiac and why he's captured both the heroes and villains, for his nefarious plan. The good thing is, it looks like this is just a, kind of a 2-3 part crossover. There is some side stories in, like, Power Girl, but I don't think you actually have to read those. I'm enjoying it. Once again, I'm also glad that it's continuing, it's the same. Well, Rafa Sandoval is also doing the artwork. He did the artwork on Action Comics last week. That's actually a big plus, having the same artist, not kind of jumping around. Like I said, I like it. And as long as it's kind of a short crossover and not, like this big, 12-part epic with, 15 100 books or whatever, I'd say it's worth checking out. It is a good Superman story, and I think Williamson's doing a good job, and like I said, it doesn't look like it's going to be a really long, slow burn crossover thing, so that's a plus. But I did like this issue, so I think it's worth, still kind of worth checking out. I like what Williamson's doing, and of course Sandoval's artwork is really gorgeous. I mean, I said that last week with Action, and it's just as good this issue with Superman. Next up, we have Animal Pound number 3, written by Tom King and with artwork by Peter Gross. This is the second of 3 Tom King books this week. Tom King's having a very good week this week. The other one will come up later. So as we know, that Animal Pound is kind of a loose adaptation of Animal Farm. So what has happened, there's been elections, and the dog was elected first. But there's kind of like, the rabbits are kind of like really the minority. And so they kind of, want certain things, but they're not really getting them. But really kind of what's going on, you're really seeing how democracy can and cannot work because there's also sometimes underlying issues. So, there's the cats, some of the cats have, say, hey, we're smarter than the dogs, we should really take over. There's kind of a lot of underlying, kind of political, behind the scenes, and that's really what this particular story is about. Plus, we also have Piggy the bulldog, who's basically the internet superstar, and because he's been so popular on the internet, what it is they basically set up like they're getting money from the videos, and then people are bringing food to the animal pound. And so, because they were running out of food, so by becoming like a YouTube star, Piggy has basically saved the day. I really don't want to get into the, too many of the nuts and bolts, because it's a really interesting read. And I think, it's very, political and social, there's a lot of psychology involved in the whole thing. It's just an interesting take on the Animal Farm story. And that's what has made this really interesting. It's one thing to have a good story, but then, to have, Peter Gross doing the artwork, which is just stunning. I mean, the way he captures facial expressions in animals, because once again, they don't have the same human features, that we do, and he's able to really capture like the mood and everything. The artwork is just incredible. Like I said, I'm a big Tom King fan, but really Gross is really the secret ingredient in this book. He is just capturing this book, the story so well. It's just absolutely gorgeous, and I cannot recommend this enough. I really like this book a lot, and I'm a big fan of Animal Farm, so both King and Gross are just knocking out of the park on this one. Next up, we have Avengers Twilight #5, written by Chip Zdarsky, with artwork by Daniel Acuna. So we know that that the Avengers, Captain America is back and everything. Steve's got his powers, and they're it's kind of like the old whole, the old fart, Avengers in some ways. And so what it is we know that Red Skull has been working with Ultron, and Ultron kind of gets too big for his britches, so Red Skull fixes that. So really he's attacking the White House to really kind of take hold of his plan of really taking over the country, is really what his ultimate plan. So he's using James Stark, Tony's son, and he's basically, with propaganda and stuff, pretty much brainwashed the military and people and everything. And so the Avengers, because once again they were blamed for the H Day. And so what we find out, so he goes and he kills the president, and they have to save the vice president, because they want to, try to save democracy. And so now, Thor and Ms. Marvel and the rest of the team are, trying to, save, Washington and the, democracy. And Red Skull has a plan for a big bomb to drop on H Day. And we find out that H does not stand for hero. So I don't want to spoil anything, but the last page really, as with this book, basically the last page on most of these issues have been, this is going to be interesting. Zdarsky's really doing a wonderful job. But, once again, it's like these outside continuity stories. Really, they get to do whatever they want to, and Zdarsky's really doing that. And then Acuna's artwork is it is gorgeous. This is a really great looking book, and it's a really great story. I mean, that's the other thing. It's kind of a perfect Avengers story because it doesn't have to worry about continuity or anything. And that's why, a lot of times these, like this and, DC's, Black Label really get to do whatever they want. And that's why they work so well most of the time. Definitely continue to check this out. This is really a great book. It's honestly one of the best Avengers stories I've read in quite a while. So definitely buy this book this week. Next up, we have Helen of Wyndhorn. Written by Tom King, with artwork by Billiquis Evely. So last issue we got to see the grandfather. Bit of a spoiler, but you've had a month to read it. We find out that her that her grandfather, the estate that he lives on, not only has normal wildlife, but there's also abnormal wildlife. And so, Helen discovers this. And so she kind of has a bit of a breakdown because she's like trying to figure out what's going on and nobody's really saying anything. There's her teacher and she doesn't really know what's going on. The grandfather's like, just like, doesn't want to, like, he knows, like, he wants Helen there, but we're not quite sure exactly why. But we also find out in this issue that the science fiction or the fantasy stories that her father wrote are actually true. They're not really fantasy stories that, he wrote about creatures and stuff like that. And she sees, she sees another one this issue, and she's like, well, basically my dad was writing a diary of what happened in my, my grandfather's, estate. And so, there's a lot of like, building of like Helen, kind of going up and down, after the loss of her father, and she drinks heavily. But there's obviously some family secret that the grandfather kind of, knows, but is, not wanting to tell Helen. At the end of this issue, they go off on a, kind of a mission. And so this will be kind of a neat twist to see, what the family does. So that's obviously leading to that. That's not that much of a spoiler. It makes perfect sense in the continuity. Once again, King set up, it's basically like the Wizard of Oz meets Conan the Barbarian. That's kind of the elevator pitch for this. But what really is the icing on the cake on the script is Evely's artwork, which is just beautiful. I mean, she did the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow series with Tom King. She is a brilliant artist, and this book is just absolutely gorgeous. She really captures the kind of feeling of the period that the story takes place in. We also learn that there's a present day story going on of a guy who interviewed her teacher. So that's going to play into the story. That was kind of a neat little, that'll be interesting to see. But definitely this book is well worth checking out, especially if you're a fan of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. This is the same exact team, and it really is that good. So definitely well worth picking up. Hopefully you can still find the first issue if you buy the second, it's because the second one came out this week. Next up, we have Batman Off-World number 4, written by Jason Aaron, with pencils by Doug Mankey, with inks by Jamie Mendoza. So this, I think the 4th issue is running a little bit late. It seems like it's a little bit late. So what it is, Batman's now, he's captured the Warstorm ship. He's going around to different planets to save the slaves who've been captured by the Black Sun twins. And so they discover, they figure, they find out what Batman's doing, and it's like, how could he steal the ship? And, it doesn't turn out well for the captain, because the Black Suns are pretty pissed. And then he ultimately tried to convince Ione to, go with him to help rescue. And she's like, you're crazy. We've escaped and we just need to leave. And so, the Black Suns hire Thangarian bounty hunter to go after Batman. And that's really where we land on this issue. I really like this. I mean, at first, when I read the first, kind of couple issues, I'm like, why is Batman in space? But, it's kind of turned into quite an interesting story that Aaron has crafted here. And it's, once again, it goes back to, Bruce, his thing is to save people who can't save, who can't save themselves. And, once again, it's like, he's worried about like what's happened in Gotham because he's not there. But he also knows that he needs to, really complete this mission so he can go back home, not just leave, people to the Black Suns. So that is, it's been a really interesting ride. Like I said, the first couple issues, I'm like, okay, but he's really, he really built it up. And now those first, couple issues make a lot of sense. And then Mankey's artwork is really, really good. I mean, he's such a great artist. And it's just really, it's been a really interesting story, and it's kind of like, not your typical kind of Batman story, and that's what I really like what, Aaron and Mankey are doing here. So definitely still worth checking out. But like I said, I think it's a little late, but it's been well worth the wait for each issue. And then finally this week we have Spectacular Spider-Man #2, written by Greg Weisman, with pencils by Humberto Ramos, inks by Victor O. Zaba. So I'll be honest, I wasn't particularly blown away by the first issue, mostly because there was a lot of like time jumps in the story. There was like, kind of 3-4 stories going along, and then there was a lot of jumping, and it really made it kind of, not a very, very good read in my humble opinion. It was very, disjointed and stuff. Thankfully, there's not as much in this issue. Really, so what it is Miles and Peter, kind of discover that there's these clones, and they go and they find, and really they at first they think that they're monsters and stuff, but the clones are actually kind of protecting like the homeless people that live down there. But there's also this, kind of, there's this something going on down there, the academia, where they're, basically capturing people. Now, what's going on? We don't quite know. I think I enjoyed it much more than the first issue, but it was still kind of okay. It seems like it's little bit of a slow burn, which is not necessarily a problem. We'll kind of give it maybe another issue and kind of see where it goes. I mean, thankfully, Wiseman really got out of the whole like time, kind of scene jumping things. We still have a little bit of it here. And it's not as bad as in the first issue, but it's still kind of like there's a couple of the storylines that are like, okay, that's nice, but you're not really giving enough to that story. And whenever you have multiple stories going on, you should never feel like any of them, they should all feel important. And there's still some that don't feel like they're super important. They may be important now or later on down the road, but the point is, it makes it kind of, disjointed currently. So, you have to kind of be careful of that. Ramos's artwork is he's a fantastic artist. It looks great. I just, not necessarily sold on the story right now. It still seems a little convoluted and disjointed, but it's not terrible. It's just kind of more, I think, really disappointing is the best way to describe it. So we'll kind of leave it there. We'll give it a third issue and see what happens. Hopefully, maybe Weisman can turn it around. And I mean, once again, Ramos is great, but pretty books are nice, but it's got to have a good story to go with it. So that's going to do it this week. As always, public service announcement. I get all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics, Long Beach, California. Ryan Skinner, the owner, runs a great store. He loves comics. And there's Annie, Wendy, Derek runs their socials. It's a really great comic book store. They have a pull service so you don't miss your books, and if you subscribe to enough books, you get a discount each month, or you get them each week. But if you subscribe to enough books per month, they also offer discounts on trades, graphic novels. They have a nice manga selection. They have a really good all ages section, and they also have a section for local creators, whether it be comics, art prints and stuff. And that's really nice, kind of fostering the comics community, which is really great for the local store. But definitely, if you're in the Long Beach area, definitely check it out. It's even though it's my store, it really is a good comic. It's a good, solid comic book store. But as always, please support your local comic shop, and make sure if you pre-order anything, make sure you pick it up, because they have to pay for it before you do. So make sure you pick your books up on a timely basis so they don't get stuck with stuff that they can't sell. And as always, support your local comic shop, because they're really the backbone of the industry. And as always, we end our show with Be Kind. Here's our little bee. Thanks, Debbie and John, for giving me our Be Kind mascot. Things are tough out there. Trust me, I get it. There's been layoffs at my work. It's not pretty out there. I know a lot of people are struggling. on many different levels. But being kind to each other is really, it's very important. It's good for you and it's good for other people. And really be kind to yourself. Take care of yourselves. I know it's tough out there. It's, trust me, tax season was no fun day for me this year. But being kind to yourself and just taking care of yourself. And, once again, kindness is really simple. Opening a door, saying hello. It can really make somebody's day, and it can make your day just feel a lot better. So be kind to yourself and be kind to each other. That's going to do it this week. Thanks for watching. As always, please like and subscribe and share our videos. I appreciate it. We've got a number of new subscribers. Thanks for joining us. And comments are always welcome. If you have any comments, write them down below. And just thanks for watching. So take care of yourselves, and keep an eye out for the free comic book day. I haven't gotten all of them yet. I've only got some of them, but as soon as we get all of them, I'll go through them, and we'll create a video for that so you can figure out what you want to get for free comic book day. So anyways, take care of yourselves. This is Steven from popculturemaven.com signing off. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.